if he's playing well and he feels physically and mentally up to it, I think he'll play. But he'll know in himself whether he feels like he's motivated enough to play.
Well, hello and thanks for joining us on Queenslander. Thanks to Tab for bringing you this episode where the big talking point here this week in Queensland, and indeed, guys, all of the NRL, the future of Daly Cherry-Evans almost came out of nowhere. He won't be with Manly after this season. They broke the story, our mates down in Sydney, Denny Widelaw and 100% footy. Do you think maybe there's a homecoming to Queensland?
Yeah, look, I guess if you're joining the dots, I think the Des Hasler.
Yeah.
Probably. Now, I know DC's got history with the Titans to a certain degree, but maybe Des, the relationship he has with Des is and I think when you're at that age, obviously, you're starting to think, well, what happens after footy?
Yeah.
And maybe Queensland where there's more opportunity for him.
Yeah, great to hear you say that, Lockie. It does. What's after footy? You're always thinking about it, but by the sound of his early discussions, it sounds like he's still hungry for footy. And to be able to link up with Desi, there'll be plenty of people suggesting that's almost certain.
Well, the other one is, it's a bit like the Cooper Cronk.
Yep.
Sort of, the Roosters, and I know they got Sam Walker there. I guess there's a couple of clubs in Sydney that I reckon he'd fit in well, but I guess watch this space.
Yeah, if I was a betting man, my money would be on Roosters. A similar scenario with Cooper Cronk coming from the Melbourne Storm. Could you imagine that spine? Because Reece Robson's also coming down from the Cowboys next year. New South Wales State of Origin hooker, DC in the halves with Sam Walker and Tedesco at fullback. But could they work together? Are they too similar, DC and Sam Walker?
Well, I think at the moment, Sam's probably more suited for someone else to run the team.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
Sam plays off the cuff a bit.
Yep.
And so I think they'd combine pretty well. The Roosters shedded quite a few players.
Yeah, they got the money.
It's like, they've got some cap space. Anyway, it's intriguing, it's interesting, and, I guess for me, he didn't play for Australia at the end of last year, and I think he's come out started the season really well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lockie. I think it'd be great to see Sam play his own game. There appear to be some times where he's playing the team game rather than his own performances, and certainly if you're filling in, impersonating somebody else, it's not all that successful for you.
Do you think teams like the Dolphins and Titans will be getting their offers ready as we speak?
I think Redcliffe's already acknowledged that they're in there, and they have some cap space as well, so... Again, I think we mentioned it last week, like game managing halves, experienced ones are very rare and they're worth a bit on the open market.
And that's why I find it so bizarre what's happened at Manly. Like, why would you let him go in a way? Like, something's happened behind the scenes that we don't know.
That must have happened, Adam. I agree with you. He's been the backbone of that side for quite some time. Don't get to be able to hear on television exactly the conversation that takes place on the field and how he is running that team, but it really does appear as though he is the backbone of that side, bar no one else.
Well, he became a free agent 1 November.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe the deal was done 1 November.
Yeah,
so
we just don't know.
Done a while ago, yeah.
What about rankings, the possibility of coming to the Queensland clubs from most likely to least likely? I think least likely is the Broncos because Adam Reynolds signalled his intention to play, and you've already got Ben Hunt and Ezra Mam. I think, so Broncos 4th on that list. I'd go Cowboys 3rd. Cowboys could really do with an experienced half. They've lost a lot of experience over the past couple of years. And then I think it's 50-50 Titans, Dolphins. Who do you think would be most likely?
Well, like I said, I come back to Hasler.
Yeah, okay.
That's the only way I'd tip the Titans over the Dolphins based on that relationship. He's from...
He's a Redcliffe junior. He played junior footy for Dolphins.
But he also grew up in Central Queensland too, so don't discount the Cowboys. But anyway, it's created a lot of talking.
I'd be happy to see him at the Cowboys as a Cowboys supporter. If you want me to put a good word in during Origin, Cowboys. I'll be doing it. But how many?
Spent a bit of time at Manly as well.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. How many more years do you think he can play on? 1 more year, or 2 more years, or even more?
I mean, he touched wood. He hasn't had a lot of injuries. Look, if he didn't play rep football, he'd get another 2 years easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lockie, you probably opened up a can of worms there, and I don't remember him suffering all that many injuries, certainly not the serious ones. He can be troubled by some very annoying ones that are just about to happen, and a 37 or a 38-year body is a little bit different to one that's in the mid-20s, so I guess there's got to be special significance played there.
And you mentioned the state of origin there, Lockie. He said on 100% footy he hasn't decided this year. Do you think he should play for the Maroons this year?
Well, I think it comes down to his own. I think Billy would reach out to him and see, just get a bit of a vibe on how he's going. Because if it feels like Daly's not going to play Origin, then obviously Billy needs to start thinking about who comes next. Because there's Sam Walker's injured still.
Yep.
But I think for Daly, it'll just be, if he's playing well and he feels physically and mentally up to it, I think he'll play. But he'll know in himself whether he feels like he's motivated enough to play.
Well, you and I have both been there, fortunate enough to both be there, Lockie. And I think at the start of every year, you start to think, can I handle the speed of the game? Is everything okay? Is the body in good shape? Am I playing at a level which would be somewhere near good enough to be in that? And I'm sure that he'll think about it. But certainly he does appear to be quite comfortably just moseying along at the moment and doing a good job. So it'll be quite interesting to see how he goes.
I think you got to ask yourself, can I do the job? You know, at the level you need to be at. If I can do it, then I want to do it, then I'll go and do it. But if I feel like I'm potentially going to let the team down, well, then it's an easy decision. Yeah,
and be honest. That's the thing that you've got to do. You're not just being honest for yourself. You're being honest for, as Lockie said, the teammates that are putting in an enormous effort. So it's a big decision to be made.
And he'd be extra motivated too after narrowly missing out on last year's series. They were so close to winning. So maybe an Origin swan song to send him out a winner as the captain there for the Maroons. But moving on to the big derby Friday night at Suncorp Stadium, the Dolphins against the Broncos. Reminder too, this game kicks off at 7 o'clock. I was at the game last Friday, the Cowboys game, Lockie. You would have been there too. Heap of the crowd missed the kickoff because people don't realise daylight saving time is 7 o'clock.
Yeah, and I spoke to the CEO before the game because I said, because it was all week, it was talking about being an official sellout.
Yeah.
It was. But when kickoff went, there was still a heap of spare seats. So, daylight savings would have got people in Brisbane could have caught them off guard a bit, but also probably people watching.
Yeah, so make sure you watch it live on 9 straight after the news on Friday night. But if you're going to Suncorp Stadium, remember earlier kickoff this time around 7 o'clock. While Dolphins still yet to win a game this season, is the Wayne Bennett curse real?
I don't think it's... that you're going to get people changing their minds on this one. Those that think that there's a bit of a curse will stick to it. Others are just going to say, well, they just haven't got the playing staff that they require. It hasn't been good for them, but I think they'll come good.
Yeah.
The Dolphins, I think they're going to do quite well. They do appear to be struggling a little bit on the light injury front. They're doing it just a little bit, but I've got great confidence in the Finns. I believe that they're going to come back well.
Oh, it's a hard gig for anyone following Wayne.
Yeah.
What's the saying? Going in after Bradman?
Batting after Bradman.
Yeah. So it's a bit like that. I mean, his records, over a long period of time is so good. There's a reason why. He's very good at what he does, and when the next coach comes in after, they might be good people, good coaches, but it's very hard to have the same approach that someone like Wayne Bennett has, and it's just tricky. But I think from the club's perspective, they just need to know that it is tricky and give the new coach a bit of time put his own imprint on the team.
Yeah, and a lot of footy fans don't understand exactly what it is. They think it's a communicator. Could it be a communicator? Is it an advisor? Is it somebody that understands exactly what's required to produce your best performances week after week after week? And he's got plenty of experience on board, Wayne, and he knows how to make that change week after week and be very different in his approach. And that's why he's done what he's been able to achieve.
Yeah, I did an interview with Max Plath, the Dolphins forward, after the game. He was quite forthright. I asked him about, the Bennett curse, Christian Wolf, how he's settling in, and he's quite adamant. He's like, it's got nothing to do with Wolfie. It's us players, nothing wrong with his message, nothing wrong with the training. We need to step up more as players. And credit too in that game too to the West Tigers. I think they're a bit better this year than everyone thinks. And Api Coruscant just too smart for them. Good to see Jack Bird get a win too after the struggles he had at the Broncos. But another Dolphins player who's struggling a bit is the Hammer. How much is that on him? How much is that on the team to get him more involved?
Well, I think a lot of these rep players that played...
The Pacific Championships.
Yeah. Which he did, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I think they can have a bit of a, disadvantaged pre-season. And then when you throw in a couple of losses, and then there's a bit of talk, a bit of noise around the club, it just zaps your confidence. And I think the Hammer is reflective of the whole playing group. There's probably guys there that just aren't playing to their full potential. A win will completely change that. It'll bring the fun back into it. It'll bring the confidence back. So I just think Hammer just needs to work hard and know that it'll turn eventually.
He's got some wonderful skills, brilliant speed. The question that's in there, how much is on him, how much is on the team? Well, I think we'd probably suggest that it's 50-50.
Yeah.
I don't think the Hammer would be all that happy with his personal performances at the moment, and probably the coach is thinking that he wants a little bit more from him. So it's a tough task at hand, but he is a wonderful player, and I think that when he steps into his best form, it will be something that we don't question again. It'll be just a simple motive of him getting to produce his best when required.
Yeah, one Dolphins player who has been in quite good form this season, the opening 3 rounds, Isaiya Katoa, their halfback. He seems to have added to his running game this year. Lockie, have you kind of noticed that?
Yeah, I think he's got a very similar style to Nathan Cleary.
Yeah.
Got a good kicking game, good passing game. And look, I think Nathan's the yardstick for any halfback out there in the game. And I'm sure he watches Nathan, and in particular the grand final last year, Nathan just took the line on.
Yeah.
I think maybe the coach has said to him, look, you've got kicking game, passing game, you're defending well, but maybe we need to do more running. And I think a running halfback like an Andrew Johns, they're really effective because the defence doesn't know what you're going to do: kick, run, pass. So it's good to see, and the team isn't winning, but he's still playing well.
Yeah, he's definitely been a shining light for them. Well,
yeah, I've been quite pleased with what I've seen. I think he's got it there, and he's not getting probably as much help as he'd require from some of his forwards. Every time he carts the ball forward, it'd be nice to have options available on who he's going to offload to. When he's running on his own, it's a pretty simple one for the defence to decide, yep, we're taking this guy here. He's got no options that are available, but he's a wonderfully talented player, and it's not going to be long before we see his best.
And speaking of forwards, that Cowboys derby against the Broncos, Payne Haas scores what was essentially the match-winning try. He's just phenomenal. He just gets better, Lockie. Somehow he gets better.
Yeah, well, he's obviously, he had a bit of injuries through the pre-season, but then when they first started him in round 1, they were building his minutes up, and the other night, what's it called with what he's doing at the moment?
Ramadan. With his religion. So he didn't eat or drink during the day.
He's not allowed to.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty phenomenal that his body, and maybe because he's not eating as much as he would normally, maybe he's a tiny bit lighter. The way he ran around the...
Drink water. Yeah.
Yeah, ridiculous. He's always... when he first came to the club, there was I guess this mention of this freakish front rower coming that would win the the conditioning. He beat the backs in the conditioning and even in some of the sprints. So we saw that the other night. So it's pretty. He's a complete player.
Oh, yeah, he sure is. And I was quite amused sitting next to a group of blokes that were finding out, why we can rubbish him. He's not doing this, he's not doing this. And come on, Hammer, nail the opposition. Bringing in lines like that, which they thought were pretty clever. As the match went on, they got quieter and quieter and quieter. And I said, no criticism going the Hammer's way at the moment. Yeah. They said, he's pretty good, isn't he? Yeah. So everyone got to love him, and it was a thrill. I really enjoyed watching him. It was fantastic, and he has a challenge at hand every game. I think the big boys up front often tell their teammates we're the ones that do the hard work, and that could not be argued. In the last game, he was a wonderful performer. And
if I was Scott Drinker, I would have probably done the same thing.
Yeah, he beat me too much. Speaking of fasting, when you guys played, what would you eat before a game? Like, what was your favourite pre-game meal to load up on carbs or whatever you wanted to do? What would you eat?
No, I loved a steak. I'd eat a steak at lunch. Yeah. I'd fill myself up at lunch and I'd have nothing in the afternoon, and I'd have a coffee with a couple of eggs in the morning. But I loved a steak. I didn't like pasta. Made me feel too heavy.
Bloated? Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, it's funny. I went the other way. I mean, I used to like in the morning of the game when I was first coming in, it had to be steak, or steak. And then my dad used to tell me that bacon and eggs, you don't want to be eating bacon and eggs on the day of the game. So stick to your steak. And then as I got older, there was a bit of a belief that carbohydrates, that was it. And so to get into the pasta, to be honest, I don't think the pasta was any great benefit. Yeah. Sometimes it was, and it often depended on the outcome of the game. And I was filthy, if I'd had pasta and we'd lost. So it was just a case of if we won, that was the meal that I took for the next week. So try to get even. I wanted to feel light going in the game. I wanted to feel quick. And not. Yeah, you're 100% correct there, Lockie. That was it. Whether you did not want to be carrying too much, and some of those meals, the pasta in particular, appeared to be doing that.
Yeah, and just on the Broncos forwards, Lockie, do you think that Carrigan Haas combo, it's the best front row in the game at the moment? Yeah, well, but then people after round 2 against Canberra, everyone was saying they got bullied by Horsburgh.
So look, when they're like. The other night, in the first 25 minutes, Cowboys were on top, right? So once we got some field position and some possession, they started to dominate. But, they did defensively, the team did well to hold the Cowboys out. But, I just didn't think that the start of the game was where they wanted it to be after they got beaten up the week before.
Yeah. Cowboys needed to score in that opening 20 minutes and they didn't, and it kind of damn well burst and it went the other direction. But I still like to look at Jackson Purdue. He'll be a player. Like, he's not quite a centre, but they're trying to fit him into the team somewhere. Eventually, I think he'll be a fullback or a half, but he scored that last try.
Yeah, well, he made a break early in the game too. He's exciting.
Yeah, he's got plenty of talent.
Adam, I've got to say, for the Calm Coach Award, that's got to go to the Cowboys.
Toddy Payton, yeah.
It doesn't matter sort of what happens or the disaster that takes place or the not so good performance from the Cowboys. He remains very cool, calm and collected, gives the chewing gum a workout and just remains, on his own until he gets the chance to speak to them again. So it's quite remarkable, actually, and I was expecting him at some stage to, stand up and perhaps try to get the message out onto the field. But, boy, he's got a presence.
Yeah, he did a really good job in that pre-match press conference. If you get a chance to go back and watch it, his demeanour obviously rubs back on the team. Adam Reynolds was also excellent in that game too, Lockie. He signalled his intentions to play again next year. How did the Broncos manage their way through that situation, or do they try and sort it out as quick as possible?
Well, again, I think Adam's body is critical to this.
Yep.
So hopefully he can stay on the field week in, week out. And if he's still contributing like he is, then... you've got, I guess there's a few different theories here. Where does Ben Hunt end up? Ezra Mann comes back, so there's a, Ezra could sit back and watch Ben and Adam, for most of this year and learn a bit.
Yeah.
But what happens next year, I don't think you could decide around Adam until sort of mid-year.
Yeah. And as we mentioned, it's another derby this weekend, the Battle of Brisbane, while up against the Dolphins. The Dolphins winless. But let's not forget the last time they played, the back end of last year, they essentially knocked the Broncos out of finals contention. They had that big upset. Herbie was incredible in that game.
Yeah, and I remember we didn't give them all that greater hope of being able to do that. They produced one of their best performances of the year, and it was the individuals that were outstanding throughout the course of that game. Producing arguably their best games of the season. So they have another challenge on their hands. It'll be interesting if the rewind button is pushed again.
You've noticed that it's still in its infancy, that rivalry, Lockie. What have you noticed on that? Like, to me, it's almost become the biggest Queensland rivalry now in the space of a couple of years.
Yeah, well, I think the Cowboys rivalry probably just lost a little bit, because the personnel had changed.
Yeah.
You didn't have, Paul Green and Wayne Bennett or Jonathan Thurston out there. So it's probably been somewhat diluted a little bit. But the Dolphins won, fighting over who's Brisbane's team.
Yeah.
That's a marketing ploy, but it actually brings and generates a lot of interest. So, I think it's, the best rivalries are the ones that are across town.
Yep.
You look at all the other big sports, and if the closer they are, the more intense the rivalry is.
Yeah, just like with the Rabbitohs Roosters down in Sydney, that version in New South Wales. Okay, with that in mind, let's get to the big call, thanks to Tab. My big call this week is the Dolphins win. They have their first victory of the season. They upset the Broncos at Suncorp Stadium, and then they get on a bit of a roll. As you said, Lockie, you just need one win to get that confidence. You don't agree with me that the Dolphins are going to win based on your reaction, but it's got to be a big call, thanks to Tab.
Not that I don't agree with you, but I was actually going to go. I was thinking the Cowboys. Well, they got to play the Raiders.
Raiders, yeah.
But I think they'll break through, and I'll go with. I reckon Tommy Dearden to have a big game. So man of the match, Tommy Dearden, Cowboys to be back in the winner's circle.
I'm going to agree with you, Adam. There'll be plenty of people that don't agree, but I think it is a big call. It will inspire plenty of players.
Yeah, there we go. A Dolphins upset, maybe at Suncorp Stadium. You catch it all live and free on 9.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
Just quickly to the Titans, a big win for them over the Knights at home. Tino had a blinder. How important was it for a leader to stand up for the Gold Coast?
I think leaders won. I think they all needed to stand up. They were. What would I say? When they played the Bulldogs, it wasn't like they were terrible, but they were just ill-disciplined, and so, and then a little bit of heat comes on them, even though they'd only played one game. But they had to respond to that defeat, and they did. They came out with energy, and Tino was always going to take a few weeks to get going because he's coming back from an ACL.
Yeah.
So that'll do his confidence the world of good, but also the team.
Yeah, and I think the biggest challenge for him, I'm basically saying what you said, Lockie, in having the confidence with an injury as serious as that, there has got to be some full-time hurdle in being able to get over it mentally. Managed to go ahead and do it, and a wonderful performance from them.
Yeah, and they play on Friday night. I think they're the 5 o'clock game this week against the Roosters. Roosters have been up and down. How hard is that to play in coming up against a team like that to combat, Lockie?
Well, any team that comes off a loss, they generally, they're a bit more motivated to work harder through the week and try and get back in the winner's circle. So, we saw they got criticised to the hill and back after they lost to the Broncos.
Yeah.
And they come out and beat Penrith.
Yeah.
I don't think the criticism is out there like it was after round one, but they weren't too far away from the Warriors in New Zealand. So, but they'll be hard to beat down there. They always are. So they'll be up and ready for the game.
And there's a certain player in a number 1 jersey for the Roosters who's copped a bit of criticism in recent weeks, and I think that he'll be one of those that certainly do inspire the rest of the players to better performances.
Yeah, and you had a factor last year where David Fafita was actually going to go to the Roosters, Reneg stayed at the Titans. Do you think any sledges on field that'll be brought up during the game?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. I reckon, if Wally was out there back in the day, there would be a couple.
Yeah. I reckon that actually worked in the Roosters' favour because they ultimately re-signed Angus Crichton when they weren't going to. And Angus Crichton is as good as any back row in the competition at the moment.
DCE as well.
Yeah, hopefully. Maybe it's an audition to get DCE to the club. I think we're running out of time here. Only a couple more minutes. My Cowboys fell to 0-3, still yet to win a game. But while there were glimmers of hope in that Broncos game, they weren't too far off actually winning that match. Yeah,
well, as you and I both know, we're fairly big Cowboys fans, but I haven't seen a lot to support them in the decision-making process this year. They've been pretty ordinary, really. And again, I'm sort of a bit confused as to the coach's patience and how he deals with it. Obviously, they're just simple things that are going wrong, and he believes that he can get rid of those. But when you've got an 0-3 start to the season, I don't think you're going to have any difficulty whatsoever in getting yourself in the right frame of mind for a game, particularly when you're in a match of this importance.
Yeah,
it was a definite step up for them. They were much better. So I think while they'll be disappointed with the result, they'll get something out of that performance.
Yeah, and just a couple of soft tries cost them that. Reynolds won, and then Payne Haas through the middle. Ruben Cotter unfortunately misses that tackle. But you guys as halves, you watched there live. Jake Clifford, was he better? He's got a good kicking game. Yeah. He put some big spirals up.
I think where his big advantage for the team is that he's got a big boot.
Yeah.
So even if he doesn't put a spiral up, he can put a bomb up from 50 out and land it on the try line. And that's why the Cowboys had all the field position early on the back of Jake Clifford's kicking game.
Yeah.
So he makes a big difference there. They just couldn't get the points that they needed to take advantage of that field position. But, that might happen this week.
Yeah, it's not just the strength of his kicking either, it's the positioning of it. Very rarely it's not exactly where he wants it and putting pressure on the opposition. He's got a wonderful kicking game.
Yeah, he's a bigger body too if you see him up close. He's actually one of the tallest halfbacks in the NRL. But a big challenge awaits the Cowboys this weekend against the Raiders back up there in Townsville. Starts a difficult run for them. But Friday night footy, have your TVs tuned to 9 if you're not at Suncorp Stadium. Big derby, the Battle of Brisbane. The Dolphins up against the Broncos.